Hey, my name is Leah Day, and I think it is finally time for me to do a quick tutorial on the Janome Horizon 7700. I've had my machine for about 10 months now, and I can safely say that I love this machine. I've had a lot of different machines, and I've written several articles on kind of my quest to find the perfect free motion quilting machine, and I really think I found it in the Janome Horizon. The features that make it so awesome are, of course, the huge throat plate. This is 11 inches from the needle to the back of the machine, and that really allows you to get in there and quilt some big quilts on this machine. I've quilted on smaller machines, a Bernina Activa 210, and it has about a 6.5 inch throat plate. I've also quilted on the Juki TL98QE. It has about a 8.5, 9 inch throat plate. Both of those machines are okay, and yes, you can quilt on them, but if your focus is quilting large quilts or just simply is free motion quilting on a domestic, this is the best machine that you can possibly get for it right now in May 2011. It's got the biggest throat, it's got the most features, and it really does free motion quilt beautifully. So I'm going to share a quick tutorial on how I personally use the machine. I am not being paid by Janome. I do not get a cut for these machines that are sold. I have no special interest in this at all in any way. That also means that I'm using the machine in a way that probably the company wouldn't advise, because this is just me working on it. So if something that I'm doing differs from the manual, you need to use your own judgment on whether you want to try it or not. I am not responsible for it if you break your machine, is essentially what I'm saying, okay? I do use a few things that are differently, and I especially free motion quilt differently, so definitely watch that part of the video and you can see for yourself. I've had a lot of people writing in, especially asking questions about the new blue bobbin case thing. Just for the record, I did not switch my bobbin case, and I think that that's a real waste of money. You absolutely don't need to do it, and if you have invested in it, try and take it back to your dealer, because that is a real, just absolute ripoff. So I'm going to show you this video, and sorry it's not the best quality because it's really hard to film with one hand and try and show you the features that I'm showing you, but I am at least going to cover the basics of how I piece and how I free motion quilt, how you can set up your machine to work similarly, and hopefully answer any questions that you have remaining about the Janome Horizon. Now, as far as settings for my piecing go, I'm of course using that D1 stitch, and let's see if I can get a good angle here. I'm using that D1 stitch, and I am also going to change my stitch length down to about 1.4. And I like to have a really, actually about 1.3. I like to have a really, really tight stitch for when I'm piecing. Okay, and the first thing you're probably going to notice is, alright, I'm going to put my needle down so that way it's always in the down position, is the foot that I'm using for piecing. This is not the foot that the Janome Horizon came with, and it's not the alternative foot, the O2 foot. It's not either of those. This is the clear plastic piecing foot, and I prefer this one because I can actually see what I'm doing, and I like it quite a bit. So that's the one that I use for piecing. Everybody's different, so whatever your preference is, go with it. If you find a foot that's very accurate, that pieces well for you, this is simply the one that I like the best for this machine. Okay, so now we're going to lift up. Just trying to stay as accurate as I can, making sure that no fabric is coming to the right side of that foot, and that the two pieces are perfectly lined up together. I will have to say that I absolutely love the speed control and the amount of speed control that I have on this machine. It really is amazing how much control you have over the speed and how fast the machine is going at any point in time. Personally, I do not advise you lowering the actual speed of the machine. I know that there is that bar across the top that you can lower the speed, and I do not really advise that. Okay, so I sent through my scrap charger again, and here you can see, back this up, So what I was saying is, I don't believe in lowering the speed of the machine down slower. I always leave it at full speed, and that's for anything, free motion quilting included. A lot of people will slow down their machine, and I really don't agree with that. So this is my line of piecing, and of course you really want to measure and make sure that this is an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. The more often that you measure your piecing, the more accurate it will be. So then of course you can finger press, but that is how I piece with this machine. I use that D1 stitch, I lower my stitch length to 1.3, and I use this clear plastic piecing foot. I always have my needle in the down position and my speed completely up. So that's the basic steps for piecing on the Janome Horizon. So now let's move on to free motion quilting. I'm going to lift up my needle and break this off. I'm going to switch out this entire thing, and I will have to say, you know, unscrewing feet does get a little annoying. I wish that there was a faster way of exchanging feet that was as accurate on the Janome as the Bernina's. Bernina has a really nice way of connecting their feet to the machines, and that is something unique to Bernina's that make them good machines. But at the same time, this is not so annoying that it's a deal breaker. It's just simply you're going to need a screwdriver. For free motion quilting, this is what I'm using. This is let's see, it doesn't have a number on it. Oh yeah, there it is. This is the, let's see here if I can back it up so you can see it. It's the QVH foot, and you can see it looks very clunky. It looks huge, doesn't it? And I talk a lot about clunky feet and being annoying and all that kind of stuff, but this foot is actually extremely well designed. I was very skeptical when I first saw it, and wasn't really sure how it was going to work and if it was going to be a good foot or not, but it's actually wonderful. What this is, all this clunkiness, this is a spring that allows you to adjust at the foot how high this is going to sit on the surface of your quilt. So if I'm quilting something and it's particularly thicker than what I'm usually quilting, I can adjust the spring to make the foot set higher. For that extra puff, just take it, take that into account and lift the foot a little higher right here. Or if I'm working with something particularly very flat and very thin, I can adjust this again and bring the foot down so that way it fits a little closer to the quilt. Having a foot that's adjustable is very nice. I do this with generic feet using a rubber band, which is kind of ghetto. So I love that I'm able to adjust it on the foot with this one, and this is a very good design. I want to say that there might have been some sort of bar that was hitting and making this thing bounce, but I ripped it off so long ago that I kind of forgot. I have no idea. If there is a bar, rip it off. You don't need it. You can adjust the height on this foot simply on the foot. You don't need it to bounce up and down. Absolutely don't need it to bounce up and down. Okay. Pull my thread back. Let me talk about the settings that I'm using for free motion quilting, because they're pretty similar to piecing, but they're a little different. Okay, so first step is have your D1 stitch on. We already had that for piecing, so I don't need to adjust anything. But now I'm going to adjust my stitch length down to 0, so that way you can see it's basically just D1 stitch, and I've adjusted this right here down to 0 so that there is no stitch length. The feed dogs on this machine are going to be moving up and down, but they're not actually feeding the quilt forward. They're not actually going anywhere. I do not use the free motion setting. I don't even know how to turn it on this machine. I don't want to drop those feed dogs. I find that the tension goes out of the machine whenever I do. So I do not drop the feed dogs. I have not switched to some different bobbin case. I think that that's a gimmick. No offense to the company, but making you pay another $30 for a different bobbin case or different bobbins because the tension's different supposedly, that, I'm sorry, is a big, waste of money. Mostly because if you simply put on the D1 stitch, the single needle plate, so all I've done is just pop my needle plate up. Here, let me see if I can get this so you can see it. All I've done is pop my needle plate up so that way I've got a single needle hole right here, and then I've turned my stitch length to 0. You don't need to mess with dropping those feed dogs. They're perfectly fine up. Alright, and then I'm going to cover the surface. See, the reason they're perfectly fine when they're up is that I am going to cover them with a Supreme slider. You could also use a Queen Supreme. I've just got a Supreme slider, happens to be handy right here. But the Queen Supreme is what I use whenever I'm working on any big quilt, because it's a little bit bigger and covers the surface of the machine bed a little bit better. Okay, so drop your foot. Make sure that you've got your needle down, so you're always going to end with the needle in the down position. Whenever I start free motion quilting, I always pull up my threads to the top. So I just tuck them like that, and I can drop it back down again, so that way I've got the needle in the down position. See, just like that. That one's selected right there. I've got my speed up all the way. I am not going to reduce the speed of my machine at all, because you want to have the full range of speeds that your machine is capable of. I'm going to throw on a pair of machine anchors on one hand so that way you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to kind of stitch around a little bit. So there you go. It is a beautiful, beautiful stitch. This machine free motion quilts like a dream. I absolutely feel that this machine is a bargain for the price. It's about $3,000, depends on what dealer you get it from. But generally the price is going to be about $3,000. They might throw in some extra features like a table or something. You know, every dealer is different. Every dealer is going to deal differently. So try and go in on a sale day. Try and go in and get the best deal you can. Price for the money. I think this is an excellent, excellent machine. Just the annoying things that I find about it is the fact that let's say I was in the middle of this and this was a very important quilt and I just needed to walk away for 2 days and come back to it in exactly the same position. Well, if I turn off the machine, alright, so I've just turned the machine off and I've turned the machine back on, I've come back to it after 2 or 3 days, I've got to rotate the hand wheel so that way the needle is back up, and then I've also got to lift the presser foot, and then it wants me to break my thread. But what I found is that if you are just careful, you leave your quilt in the same position. If you hit ready, and then you hit your D1 stitch again, and you hit ready, generally it will work just fine and it won't break. You don't have to break your thread. You can just simply drop your presser foot, drop your needle down, and you can get going again. So that's it for this kind of walkthrough tutorial showing you the 2 ways that I use the machine. I really don't applique that much, so I'm not going to show you applique in this video. I just kind of wanted to show you the basics of how I use the Janome Horizon and the settings that I use. Of course, I'm not a spokesperson for this brand. I did not get paid by Janome at all to make this, and this is the way I use the machine, not the way I would advise anyone else to use it. So if you use these settings the way I say and break your machine, it is not my fault. This is just simply how I use it, and I wanted to share that with you. So enjoy your Janome Horizon, or go get one if you haven't gotten one already. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I use the machine and how it kind of works. Of course, I completely understand and respect the fact that not everyone can afford a machine that's this expensive. So I actually just ordered another Janome that's going to be coming in later this week, and I'm going to play with it for a little while and see how good it is at free motion quilting, and I'll be sharing some tutorials on it as well. This other machine costs much less, actually under $500, and I think it's going to be a good starting machine for anyone who's wanting to piece and quilt their own quilts as a beginning quilter. So that's it for this tutorial. For more videos on free motion quilting and on pretty much anything to do with stitching fabric together and having fun with it, check out daystyledesigns.com.